the character action game genre or the hack and slash genre. I don't know. This is a bit of a misnomer, but some people don't know how to define this. I don't know how to define it either, to be honest. I'll call it a DMC clone or something. When my dad first got a console, he got the PS2 for us, and he bought Dynasty Warriors 3 and Paris Dakar Rally. Paris Dakar Rally was a crappy licensed racing game, but Dynasty Warriors 3 was really fun. It was hard for a 7-year-old boy that was just getting into video games, and I definitely ran away from Lubu every time he showed up, but it was still fun. You can square square triangle or square 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 triangle. I mean, the options were limitless, or you can just hold triangle. My brain just couldn't take it. And then I think a few months later, he ended up buying Devil May Cry and Omnimusha. Omnimusha scared the crap out of me. I don't know why. Maybe it was the zombies. Maybe it was the Japanese samurai aesthetic. It just didn't hit with me. Devil May Cry, though, that was my shit. Devil May Cry was balls to the walls hard, just like Omnimusha was. But I had a gun. But I think that was it. Like, yeah, Omnimusha probably had a less scary aesthetic than DMC ever did. But DMC, I was a badass with a gun. That probably made a world of difference instead of just with a sword. Believe it or not. And then I trudge along life and I get into FPSs, I get into other genres of games. But Devil May Cry has always been a weird spot in that nothing sticks to you like your first hack and slash, like your first RTS, like your first FPS. My first FPS was Halo, and that's still a story I tell a lot of people these days. My first platformer was Ratchet and Clank. There is a specific game series that you remember for enjoying because it was your first experience in that genre, or maybe first enjoyable experience in that genre. I mean, my first experience in RTS was technically Command & Conquer Red Alert, but I had much more fun playing StarCraft Brute Force. So there's that. In a perfect world, I would have probably played DMC2, then DMC3, and DMC4, but I didn't. I kind of stopped. I got into other games. I played quite a few Ratchet and Clank series, in fact. And then FPSs, Halo 1 and 2 and 3. Man, that was pretty big. But what I realized now looking back to it, the 2000s was probably the heyday. In fact, the 7th generation, 6th to 7th generation was the heyday of these sort of character action games. We got things like Devil May Cry, but not just Devil May Cry. Omnimusha 1, 2, and 3 were probably fantastic hack and slash games of their own. And then comes along Bayonetta a few years later into the next generation. Devil May Cry 4, for all its faults, I enjoyed it. And when I say it, I skipped 2 and 3, I still played 4, and 4 was amazing. But then it kind of just stops, What killed the character action game? Was always this little thing that I had in my mind. Metal Gear Solid Rising Revengeance, another fantastic game. Bayonetta 1 and 2. Great series of games. Devil May Cry 4, and then it kind of just stops. Some people would argue, oh, no, God of War, God of War 1, 2, 3, and then Ascension and the PS3 games, the PSP games rather, and then that PS4 one. No, they're all hack and slashes. Yeah, I guess. And there's a whole video about this on YouTube that, what makes a character action game, and I guess that's the conversation in and of itself. But what I'm thinking of is like something like Bayonetta, DMC, and that sort of vein of games. I don't think the original God of War, even the original God of War trilogy, fits anywhere close to the DMC games. The combat depth in God of War is so shallow compared to what DMC and Bayonetta offer, or even Metal Gear Rising. This is a hot take in it itself, but I don't think the God of War games were that great. It's only liked because of its gruesome violence and the visual aspect. I played 1 and 2. I could never finish 2. 1 was way too easy, but okay, that's getting ahead of myself. Back to the topic at hand. The hack and slash genre, the character action genre, whatever you want to call it, it felt dead until Devil May Cry 5 came back out. Devil May Cry 5 was probably the first Devil May Cry within the same, continuity for like a long time. Like I can't remember the number of years. But the reason I want to talk about this is that it's because I think it evolved into something totally different. The, the Devil May Cry, the Bayonettas, the Metal Gear Rising Revengeance, all kind of attributed, well, not attributed, but characterized by their difficulty. What I mean by that difficulty is that anybody can finish Bayonetta, anybody can finish Devil May Cry. Not everybody will get an S rank in every single fucking level. Not everybody can go through the whole game at Dante Must Die difficulty without getting hit. But that was the level of optional difficulty that was included. And in fact, some of the bosses were created with these difficulties in mind. There's a fantastic playthrough of the original Devil May Cry by Matthew Matosis on YouTube. It's about 2.5 hours. He plays through the whole game without getting hit by anything. So, on the hardest difficulty of the game. And it's very evident that the whole game from the ground up was created with this in mind. And what I mean by that is all the bosses, all the levels, all of the enemies, they were created and tuned with the highest difficulty in mind, not the lowest difficulty. In fact, Devil May Cry 1 is super easy. Well, okay, let me rephrase that. It's very beatable for a lot of people, even without any guides or any knowledge of the deeper mechanics of the game, like jump canceling. But as soon as you get into the higher difficulty levels and you want to finish S rank in all of them without getting hit, that's where the difficulty comes in. So a lot of the hack and slash genre fans, like myself, it sounds elitist, but we just like playing the same game over and over again until we get better and better. This niche was taken straight up, gobbled up by Miyazaki, and he created Demon Souls, and then Dark Souls 1, Dark Souls 2, Dark Souls 3, Bloodborne, Sekiro, and now with Elden Ring. That sort of whole market of people that wanted balls to the walls action, each mechanic in the game is scrutiny analyzed. That sort of genre loving people were swallowed up by From Software. And then we get From Software clones, like Neo is a great example. Neo is a good From Software clone. We get things like Surge and Surge 2, I guess. Mortal Shells. There's a ton of examples of these so-called Soulsborne copies. Well, what I think ended up not just killing the hack and slash character action, whatever you want to call it, genre, is the new genre that came out with what people attribute as the Soulsborne genre. That balls to the walls difficulty. That ability to replay the game again and again and again to master it. To be respected for mastering it. It sounds a bit boomer, but to like DMC and Bayonetta, or the good old days of action games, it sounds pretty boomer of these gamers. That doesn't mean it's bad. I mean, DMC 5 is still a fucking great game. Holy shit, I'd still play DMC 5 over Elden Ring any day. And that's just a preference thing, I think. If people grew up in Demon Souls, Dark Souls, Bloodborne, etc., that's what they remember as the good, hard games that makes them quote-unquote hardcore gamers. And that's what they like spending their time on, just playing the same shit over and over again. You gotta think about this, though. Like, if a genre, if a crowd of people love this genre so much, and it becomes mainstream, like Elden Ring is basically mainstream now, especially outselling Call of Duty, it probably gobbled up something in between. And I think that in between was the character action / hack and slash genre. The closest thing of all the Soulsborne games that comes to this sort of hack and slashiness is Sekiro. And I love Sekiro. It's probably one of my favorite Soulsborne games other than Dark Souls 1. Sekiro really encompasses that rhythmic battle pattern that DMC and Bayonetta love to gloat about, I guess, in their battle mechanics. There isn't much of a point to this except to say it's kind of sad well, not sad, but it's a matter of fact, I think, to see that a lot of these so-called genre-defining action games like Bayonetta and DMC hasn't seen a resurgence or hasn't seen a mainstream appeal, but somehow Elden Ring and Dark Souls did. Maybe it's just me speaking out of my ass, but the way that Dark Souls, Elden Ring sell versus how DMC5 sold. I mean, DMC5 sold really well, especially I think, but it's also because the gap was super long. I mean, Bayonetta 2's and 3's gap is amazingly long right now too. There is a world where there's more of these games, where I don't have to play Devil May Cry 4 for the 100th time. That's my main complaint. I don't want to be playing Devil May Cry 5 for 5 years until we get Devil May Cry 6. I wish there was other developers out there, other creatives creating these genre of games so that we can enjoy it a little more. Metal Gear Solid Rising, or sorry, Metal Gear Rising Revengeance needs a sequel. It really does. I want to play it as another Cyborg Ninja. So yeah, I think I'm just lamenting that there isn't more of DMC, Bayonetta, Metal Gear Rising type games. And I think the reason for that is it's just that the Soulsborne genre, the From Software type games, have just swallowed up that niche of people wanting to play the same game over and over again until they're 200 hours into it and they maxed everything out. As an aside, I mentioned that I hate open world games before, and I think this probably ties into this conversation. A lot of these games, DMC, Bayonetta, Metal Gear Rising, every one of these games have a very tightly uh, designed levels. I would say these levels are specific for specific experiences. The game designers, the writers, they all wanted you to have a certain experience when in this game. Now, obviously, you might think that it robs the player of the freedom to express themselves, but you don't because the combat system is so free flowing. Devil May Cry 1 is probably one of the better examples of this. Yes, it is technically a semi-open world where the levels like Metroidvania, it opens up as you go along. But it doesn't impede it doesn't impede the experience that the designers created for you. One of my biggest complaints about Assassin's Creed right now is that it's such an open, vast experience. Whatever the designers create, you might not you might not have that experience. You might just have a worse experience because of bugs, AI, glitches, or whatever that might be. And the open world genre just makes, I guess, a bigger room for those types of errors to happen. But that's why Breath of the Wild is so good, because it's an open world game, but it's also very tightly designed so that there is a certain experience that every player has. But within the game, the combat system, the sandbox that the game has is so free that even within those tightly designed experiences, you can still express yourself as however you want to. And I think that's the best way I can describe DMC as a series is that yes, all of these levels are tightly designed. They're mostly scripted in a way that you go through one hallway to the next, but also each and every individual combat experience is so open to your own interpretation. That's where the freedom comes, and that's where I want my freedom to come. That's where I want my choices to matter. And that's why I think I enjoy games like Bayonetta, DMC, and I wouldn't say even Dark Souls and Sekiro. Dark Souls is another great example of tightly designed levels that interconnect with each other, but also within the game, you can build your character as however you want. Do you want to be a strong knight that can tank a lot of damage, or do you want a nimble, assassin that can one shot most opponents? I mean, or be a wizard and cheat your way through the game. That's up to you. The moment to moment combat is how you express yourself. And I think that's what's important about video games is how you express yourself. And DMC and Bayonetta is probably the peak way of expressing yourselves in combat. Those are the two examples off the top of my head. Obviously, I already mentioned Dark Souls and Sekiro, but other good games with really, really good combat systems that I could think of at the top of my head probably don't come anywhere close to these games either. I mean, Halo has an amazing sandbox, and I think Halo has probably one of the better tightly designed for FPS levels. And what I mean by Halo is anything from Halo 1 to Reach, I mean even Halo 4 to a certain degree. the new Wolfenstein games, I think they are very well designed levels, and each combat experience is created so that you can express yourself in your own way by choosing what types of weapons and how you approach that battle. Even the Metro games, I think, to a certain degree. But none of these hit as close as DMC, Bayonetta, and Metal Gear Rising do. And I wish there were more games like this, and that's just my rant for today. Bye.